Case of the week. What would cause a little boy to keep having intense weird rashes, hives, weird rashes? Sometimes he'd be scratching. Sometimes there would just be rashes that would pop up and then go away. This little boy also had a lot of abdominal pain and GI problems and just discomfort. And they'd seen every specialist they could. They'd eliminated gluten, they had eliminated dairy, they had fixed the diet, they had seen every dermatologist that they could find, they'd even seen immunologists. They flew this little boy across country to see a specialist because they were, trying to figure out what this was. And they were like, well, is this rheumatoid arthritis? Is this lupus? Is this that? And they had tested this kid up the wazoo. And no one could figure out what was going on. So the family got a hold of me and they're like, well, can you help me? I'm like, sure, let's talk. So we sat down and we went through the history of the child. And this is one of the things that sometimes blows me away, that things get missed because in medicine, and this is really the gist of the story. In medicine, we say, well, that can't be a possibility. There's no way this could cause that, except how do you know, right? How do we know? And how do we definitively say that, especially when we don't even bother looking for that answer, right? And this is what limits us in medicine. And this is why I chose to go beyond conventional medicine and do all of this additional training, because I kept looking at scenarios. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. There has to be a solution. There has to be an answer. It can't be that there is no answer. This little boy who is having rashes, there must be a solution. It just can't be that his body's freaking out for no reason, right? Except in medicine, we do that. We say, well, colic is just colic. Anxiety is just anxiety. Learning disabilities are just what they are. Some kids just get abdominal pain. It just kind of happens. What does that mean? In the case of this little boy, we'll give him a name of Johnny. You guys know that I make all of this up to protect the identity of the kids. But in this little boy, we just sat down and I was like, okay, tell me everything that's happened to this little boy. So we went through the story and they're like, well, his birth was fine. This was fine. This was fine. This was fine. And then boom, all of a sudden the rashes showed up. I'm like, what happened before the rashes? They're like, well, not a whole lot. I'm like, something must have happened. You can't have a kid that was totally normal and then not normal. Something happened. They're like, well, we do go to our cabin in Minnesota and, the kids just go hang out over there. I'm like, so you go in the middle of the woods. Was there a lake? Yeah, they go swimming in the lake all the time. Okay, tell me about the cabin. Oh, is it moldy? Oh, yeah, of course it's moldy. I'm like, okay then, let's talk. So with this little boy, we started doing testing and checked, and guess what this kid had? A hookworm. This kid had a hookworm in his intestines, and every physician under the sun had thought of checking for everything other than hookworms. When he had gone swimming in the lake, guess what lakes have? Parasites. They're filled with parasites. And if you are swimming and enjoying that, beautiful water and drinking a little bit of it, guess what? You have now ingested whatever parasites are in that lake. In this case, it was a hookworm. And people had missed it. Why? Because they had done a random stool test that wasn't sensitive enough to pick up a hookworm. And they're like, well, his poop is normal. It can't be the poop. I'm like, no, it's the poop. It's the poop. And sometimes it's Lyme, sometimes it's mold, sometimes it's dietary, but we have to ask the questions. And more importantly, we have to force ourselves to stay with the problem long enough to find the solution and understand what the limitations of our tests are, because this is one of the things I see all the time. Someone goes to a doctor and I've got this issue. They do random blood work. They do a blood count and a panel, and they're like, well, this is normal, so therefore you don't have a problem. It's like, no, I feel sick. Is that panel enough to detect what's going on? And if it's not, then why are we doing these panels? And this is the whole gist of this conversation. When we ask the right questions, when we use the right tools to find the right answers, that's when all of a sudden these seemingly impossible problems become very easily solvable. In the case of this little guy, we gave him some anti-parasitic medications, we did some stuff to heal his gut, and boom, the rashes that were there for months upon months were gone. Abdominal pain gone. This kid was happy. Everything was so much better. And that's what's so cool in the realm of healing, in the realm of medicine, when we open ourselves up to all kinds of possibilities. And you guys see, I talk about osteopathic medicine. I talk about various environmental exposures. I talk about diet. We talk about nutritional deficiencies. The whole gist of this conversation is for us to be open to everything and realize that every tool, every modality, every dietary thing has its time and place when we know what to use when. So with this little boy, it was so awesome to be able to find this, mysterious problem and find the solution to it. And in doing so, we were able to make his life so much better. And the whole point of these discussions is for us to start becoming open to the realms of possibility, to start asking the questions of like, well, why is this happening? Why is this kid having learning problems? Why is this kid having anxiety? Why is this kid so easily upset? Why does that kid get freaked out every time they go into this environment? And we can extrapolate this to adults because there's a lot of adults having the same problems, except we just now call it anxiety or ADHD or he or she is just whatever. Let's get this message out there. Let's get this information in the hands of the right people. So if someone out there is having this kind of struggle of whatever things that we talk about, they can start thinking back like, yeah, we've gone swimming in the lake. Yeah, my kid has always had abdominal pain since that visit to our house in whatever. Maybe my kid has parasites too. Let's find a doctor that knows how to check for this. And through these conversations, we can make a big, 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 big difference in the lives of so many families and so many kids. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this community. This is Dr. K.